On average, you'll have to wait 31 days to see an OBGYN. And if you're dealing with an infection or outbreak, you know you need care fast. That's where WISP comes in. Connect with a U.S. licensed provider online and pick up safe, effective treatment at your local pharmacy that same day. Plus, get birth control and more delivered in all 50 states. Take control with comprehensive sexual and reproductive care, all from your phone. WISP. That's hellowisp.com. The waiting room can wait.
You know what makes every outfit look better? The right bra from Third Love. Their bras make it easy to get ultimate cleavage, a smooth look, or even stop your shirt buttons from pulling. They make over 60 sizes, including half cups you won't find anywhere else, so you'll find your perfect fit. Third Love solves bra problems, or what they call brablems. Real women test every style they make. Comfort and support are guaranteed. So stop settling for bad bras. You deserve better. Get your problem solved today. Save $15 on your first order with code PODCAST15 at thirdlove.com.
Welcome back to Investies. I'm your host, Linda Garcia. This week on the podcast, I want to share a panel discussion I recently had the opportunity to be on, hosted by Bessie Martinez and the House of Chingonas at Mira Mira in Austin. Bessie is the founder of the Latina Foundation, and my co-panelists, who I am extremely proud of, Denise Hernandez, the presiding county court judge in Travis County, Texas. She is also an activist working for youth adversarially impacted by the justice system. I'll include the social handles for Bessie and Denise in today's show notes. I honestly felt so lucky to get to share space with these two incredible women. We really had a special experience, Denise and I. In 2019, we were both attendees at We All Grow Summit. This is a summit that no longer takes place, but I know has a very special place in a lot of our hearts for those that got exposure to the summit. It was absolutely incredible, and so much talent came out of that summit. Every year, the summit had what they called storytellers, and you had to audition to be a part of the storytellers. Every year, it was something I would audition for, and I finally had the opportunity to participate. We were chosen out of hundreds of incredible people. There were 7 of us that were selected, and in 2019, Denise and I were both selected. At the time, both of us had absolutely no idea that we would end up in politics, and we certainly could have never imagined that we would both be working in Austin together. We All Grow Summit was taking place in Long Beach, California. So you can imagine how special this moment was as we now got to talk to other folks here in Austin and hopefully inspire more community members to get involved in politics and hopefully hear the call, because we need all of us participating in policy at any capacity, or at the very least supporting our policymakers, whether it's on the campaign side or while they are in office. A true honor to get to be with these two mujeres, a full circle moment. I will be back next week with more stock market news. I know things are a little crazy right now, but just remember to stay centered. More importantly, stay invested. Don't let the stock market control your emotions. Enjoy this panel as Bessie Martinez kicks us off.
Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce my first guest for our panel. Judge Denise Hernandez is the presiding judge of County Court at Law 6 in Travis County and dedicated community organizer. She leads the Transformative Youth Justice Program, a court-led diversion incentive providing holistic support for young people impacted by the justice system. She is also a mentor, and she serves on the board of the Contemporary Austin and Advisory Committee of ATXPs. She's also known as the People's Judge. She continues to advocate for fair access and collective care in and out of the courtroom. Miss Denise Hernandez. Can we give her a round of applause in? Our next panelist, Ms. Linda Garcia, is a financial educator, entrepreneur, and candidate for Texas House District 107. I got to sit in, and it was so exciting to be down. I mean, I've lived here for 5 years, and I've never been to Capitol. So that she took me there, and I was so excited. I was all giddy like a girl at their first day of school. So with 17 years in the TV and film industry shaping Hispanic programming, she founded In Luz We Trust to help individuals overcome financial trauma and build wealth. Her book, Wealth Warrior, 8 Steps for Communities of Color to Conquer the Stock Market, and her podcast, Investies, have made financial literacy accessible to many, recognized by Latino Leaders Magazine and featured in Forbes, Yahoo Finance, and Univision. Linda champions economic empowerment, equitability, educating, funding, healthcare access, and infrastructure development in Texas. Can we give her a round of applause, Ms. Linda Garcia? Okay, so we're going to get started. It could be for either one of you. So representation matters. And that's probably one of the number one questions I get asked as to what made me want to start all of this. In my opinion, there's still not enough, no matter whether it's here in Austin, in Dallas, people presume that because there's Latinos maybe in Houston or San Antonio or the Valley, that representation is still available and accessible to us. So growing up, did you see yourself reflected in the government roles or leadership roles? And what inspired you to step into public service?
Yeah. Okay. Well, one, thank you for having us. I also want to start by saying that this isn't the first time that Linda and I have shared a platform together. We both spoke on a stage at We All Grow in California back in 2018, way before we even thought about public office. And so it really is an honor to be here with you. We've followed each other's journeys for a bit now, and so it's a really sweet moment. Feels really 360. I did not grow up seeing people like me in public service, and that's intersectional, both in Latina representation, but also queer Latinas. And, I think a lot of what even drove me to want to be in public service was my own life experience. My parents were migrant farm workers, and they both dropped out of school. My dad dropped out in 8th grade, my mom in like 9th grade. And so, we struggled a lot growing up. And, I'm the first person in my family to graduate high school and then go to college. And I realized that it was in community that my parents found resilience, right? Whether it was within each other or with our familia, but leaning into community is where they found resilience and strength. And I knew that I wanted to help people like my family. Which is what led me to nonprofit work, which is a form of public service, and then eventually led me to working as a prosecutor for a couple of years, helping survivors of domestic violence and child abuse, and which is eventually what led me to wanting to run to be a judge, realizing that we need voice, lived experience in these decision-making roles. And by lived experience, I mean people who have struggled and have built solutions from that struggle. I'm a big believer, if you grew up poor, you're probably the most innovative person in the world. And then imagine with resources, what type of innovation you can create. And I've learned that when you grow up and struggle, you become a phenomenal leader because you have a compassion that you can't fake. It's rooted in pain, but in that pain, you create a lot of healing along the way. And so even though I didn't see that representation growing up, I had little glimmers of mentors in my life, right? People who went off to law school, the first in their family. I was like, oh, they look like me, right? And then, just seeing little moments of representation throughout my life that gave hope. They were like seeds that eventually planted to this moment right now. And so I think we have a lot more representation, which is great, but not all representation is aligned representation. I think we can see that now and in a lot of ways. So it's important to also say that representation who gets it, right? Who's here for the comunidad in all roles. And, which is a big reason why Linda's role right now in our state capitals, so important. Belinda, what about you? I mean, what drove you to public service?
It's really interesting. In my 20s, which was 25 years ago, I had a friend that became a lobbyist. And as soon as he was submerged, he took me out to dinner and he said, Linda, I think you should consider running for office. And I was like, absolutely not. He actually had this very big plan that I should run as a Republican because this was going to be the future of Latinos. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. But also, no, I'm not, that's not what I want to do. I went to school for marketing. I wanted to write and produce and create television commercials, which I ended up doing. And I was just in a whole different place. But just like Denise said, there were seeds that were planted, and he definitely planted a seed. A few years after that, I thought to myself, maybe one day I can be mayor. I really thought that in my mind, which now sounds really crazy to think about that. And then I went to go work for the city of Dallas, and I decided that that was not the path for me. I wanted to be as far removed from politics as possible and just really submerge myself in creativity. I was asked continuously, but what felt serious inquiries to run for public office. And, this last time, I feel like the seed took root. I received a text message from our current state representative and other advocates to consider running for my district. And I just thought that was the most craziest thing I had ever heard. Went to lunch with her, and she explained the entire role to me. She engaged me with, you could write a bill on financial literacy. And as soon as I heard that, I perked up. But then I asked a really important question that all of us should be asking when we're, applying for a new role or being considered for a role. I asked, how much does this position pay? I was shocked when I found out that our state representatives get paid $7,000 a year. I went home and I did research on what the per capita income is in my district. The per capita income is $24,000 a year. And I really quickly began to think, where are you going to find a state rep? By the way, when she engaged me, she gave me 3 hours to make a decision because the very next day I had to file and run. So this all happened in a very short period of time, and I began to get really upset at the idea that the lawmakers that are making the law are heavily underpaid. And anytime I would try to bring up that topic, people would say, well, we can't pay the lawmakers because then they'll do it for the money. And I'm like, well, we have an even bigger problem because they're doing it for the power. And so that creates a space where voices and diversity, there's no space for that to get heard. You have to be very well off to be a state representative. I'm not very well off. The entire year, even though I did not have an opponent, I was meeting with lobbyists, community members, advocates, door knocking, simply introducing myself to my constituents and letting them know that I am running unopposed and I will be their state representative. And I lost a lot of money that year because I was not focusing on my business, a business that was generating a lot of revenue. I had just come off of a really big book tour. My business was growing, and I basically gave all of that up for the solid reason that we are underrepresented, and I didn't want someone to come into my district that didn't have a home there, that didn't cut the grass, that didn't put Christmas lights up, to then come in and represent my district. I also felt like I had the privilege of being an entrepreneur and being a book author to have the flexibility, uproot myself and come to Austin. And so it was really the anger and the rage that drove me to run for public policy. And I think it's really important for us to know that There's a statistic somewhere that for women to run, you have to be asked at least 3 times before we say yes, but we have to be asked. I also want to say, like, just like Denise said, we shared a pretty big stage. We had a pretty big speaking opportunity, and I don't think either of us ever saw this for our future. So it's also really, I think, important to consider that we don't know what life has to offer for us. We don't know the twists and turns and what we will be called to step into. And so it's important for us to always keep our minds open to that.
Mochi Health is a long-term weight loss solution personalized to fit your unique needs and goals. Meet one-on-one with board-certified obesity doctors and registered dietitians who are on a mission to listen. Eligible patients can access custom-formulated GLP-1 medications at an affordable, set price and get them delivered to their home each month. No insurance required, FSA and HSA accepted. With 24/7 customer service available, Mochi Health is here to partner with you on your journey to a healthier life. Take the free quiz at joinmochi.com and use code AUDIO40 at checkout for $40 off your first month of membership. That's joinmochi.com.
So I moved to Austin 5 years ago. I was living in the Dallas area at the time. During the pandemic, we were all suffering through the one thing, isolation, and so I didn't know anybody. And I was like, well, I want to meet people. How do I meet people when everybody's kind of really uncertain about stepping outside their door? So you turn to social media, not always the place to be, because I'm a doom scroller. I don't know about you guys. And not every information is correct information. And I was just trying to learn and navigate my way through. And that's how I came across Denise. And then I learned about Linda because I too went to a We All Grow event a few years back in 2018. And so I was familiar with the names, and I just said, all right, let me just shoot my shot. Like, let me just reach out to them and see how can I support, even though I don't know what I'm doing and I don't probably have any resources. But these two women were like, yes, because they saw the longer game, right? They saw that there was a vision out there and that it took more than just one of us to be able to do. We should not be doing anything in life in general alone. But being able to continuously live that vision and move forward in that, especially right now in the political climate that we're in, it can definitely be discouraging. I know for one, I have sat there and cried many tears for many reasons. So I'm originally also from El Salvador. And so I migrated to here at a really young child. So I was seeing a lot of the things happening unfold in my life all over again. I've been through all of this before. All the things you see on social media, I lived it. Only back then, all you had was newspaper and television. That tells you how I just aged myself there. But it can get discouraging really easily. So, with the policy issues that are disproportionating, I cannot say that word to save my life, sorry, affecting us today, how do you continue to communicate and push for this change that sometimes just feels like, what's the point?
I think it's a normal part of the process to feel like, what's the point? I do think it can't always be up, right? I'm a big believer that nature is a great representative of what life is. I don't know if anyone's read Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown. Highly recommend. Amazing book. But talks about how we can look to nature for guidance and how we should live life. We're also not apart from nature. We are a part of nature. So let's look to nature for guidance, right? What is natural? We have up and down. We have full moon. We have no moon. We have the waves that, come to shore and come out of shore. We have a natural up and down movement, even with our breath. So with movements, we have the same. We have moments where we have wins, and then we have moments where we have fights. The goal is to never fall, I think, so consumed by the low moments that we don't remember that we can have high wins. And I think the way that we do that is that we still try to find joy in the chaos. And I know right now we're in a state of chaos, consistent chaos. Every day, something new, something chaotic. It's like, oh my gosh, how do you, even me, like I'll wake up some mornings, I'm like, God dang it, the freaking world. And then I meditate. I go outside. I listen to the birds. The sun is out. It's not cold anymore. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's going to be okay. We're going to have beautiful, joyful moments, right? Even this moment, we can lean into the joy of this moment. And this is what we fight for. To be able to have space like this, to be able to be in community without fear, to be able to be yourself in all your representation and no fear, right? That's what this country is about. It's about being yourself. It's about full expression without fear of being torn down for that, right? And so this is what we fight for, these small moments. There are also big ones, right? We have human rights issues. We have LGBTQ issues. We have women's rights issues. We have abortion access. There's so much, right? There's so much we have to be fighting for. And sometimes that can feel overwhelming. But showing up in spaces like this is also a part of the fight, right? Being able to show up in community and not be so fearful that you don't go out, because that is the goal. Isolation, feeling alone. But if we remember that we're not alone, then we can build, and we can grow, and we can lean in to swing us back to those high moments. And so I think that's how we continue to fight, is just leaning into the small moments of joy and community.
I love that. That was beautiful. Thank you for taking us on that journey. I think that, as you mentioned, we are getting overwhelmed with a lot of chaos that's taking place. And one of the things that has really, truly helped me is to try to really focus on what is my personal North Star. There's so many things that are burning and crashing, and it's impossible for us to take up all of those topics and try to make headway. That's not going to get us anywhere. And so continuously, I really try to stay as close as possible to what lights me up and makes me happy. Because even if I'm in battle, I know I'm fighting for the things that bring me joy. And so one of the decisions that I made early on when I decided to move into public policy, which felt like a complete 360 at the time, but I started to see my world of educating on financial literacy fold itself into what I'm doing now. One of my biggest frustrations with the Democratic Party for close to 6 years now was their lack of conversation surrounding economics. That is a narrative that has been for too long dominated by the Republican Party, and it is something that the Democratic Party has failed to focus on and take note of. And unfortunately, that specific topic is what has gotten us to where we are today. And so I have had heavy criticism on the lack of economics on my party. And I would always talk about, I wish that one day I could impact economic policy on a federal level. One of the folks that I look up to a lot is Fed Chair Jerome Powell. He currently is the chairman of the Federal Reserve. So he's the one that determines if our interest rates go up or down. He's sort of the one that is helping us navigate inflation, which in my opinion, he's done a really great job of it. And so as I was watching him navigate the space, this internal desire of wanting to do that and be a representation for lower income communities that are impacted by inflation began to grow. And that, along with the low pay and the inaccessibility for folks like us, was obviously one of the reasons I chose to do that. But as I moved closer into the space, I told myself, I want to make sure that I stay as close as possible to my North Star. And so, I really wanted to be strategic and try to get the committees that I am most closely aligned to, which when you become a state representative, there are committees that you get to sit on, where that is where you get to impact policy that is coming in. I wanted a smaller learning curve, and it's not normal for a freshman to come in and get the committees that they want to get. it worked out in the way that it did, and I was able to join pensions, investments, and financial services, and also Doge, which sounds like a really scary, triggering word right now. This is where technology is going to move through, and this is also where we need an advocate for our side of the party as well. It's very important. And so I am trying and working really hard to make sure that I am not overwhelmed by all of the other things that are taking place in my life, and staying as close as possible as I can to my North Star. I think that that's what's really important, and we have to trust that our colleagues, our comrades, our friends that are interested in women's rights, education, that they are taking their fight as serious as possible, and that we're able to lean on them and their expertise, and that hopefully they're able to lean on me and my expertise, because as we've highlighted here, we can't do anything by ourselves. So I think the most important the best way that we can make headway on change and staying consistent is to make sure that you are following the things that impassion you.
So whenever you run for mayor, make sure, I know I'm not up there, but I'll cast the vote anytime. Thank you, both of you, for that. Because I think the way I've learned to navigate through my journey and when it comes to policy and government and the things that affect me as an immigrant Latina woman has just really taken it day by day, hour by hour at this point, because nothing is ever guaranteed. The pandemic showed us that. Another thing that I have learned this time, which I didn't know before, is really speaking in a way, especially I have children, and I have one of them here today in that far back corner. In case you didn't notice, we look alike, just a little. But it's having the conversation that my parents didn't have with me. And I don't think it's because they did not want to or because we were going to butt heads. It was because they were coming from a space of fight or flight. They didn't know. They came to this country, we're going to make it, and that's all we need to. And then when we get there, we'll figure it out. So there's a lot of unknowns, right? And so I'm having to even myself educate myself on what's happening, right? Because that's a lot of the things, that's how my nervous system goes into shock. But then also talk to them in their terms. Oftentimes we talk to kids like we want to bring them up. And I, from the get-go, was like, no, we have to come down to their level and speak in their level if we want them to understand and engage. So we do have these conversations. Yes, we still sometimes butt heads on certain things, but it's a conversation nonetheless, But for myself as a nonprofit leader, it has gotten a little bit hard, because we do rely on a lot of grant funding, federal funding. And I knew before all of this was going to happen that it was going to happen, and that I knew when I chose the name what I was choosing, and that I was ready for the battle before the battle even started. I know it's weird. I'm one of those. But I knew ahead of time, and I also had already placed strategically who, when the time was come, was I going to reach out to and say, teach me all the things so that I can also lead in that same direction. It can get obviously very overwhelming when you take over a position. But as Latinas, how do we, because as myself, as with my title, I'm mom, but I'm also a founder. I'm also an entrepreneur. I know how to move certain ways and to ask the questions, but sometimes we don't know how to we don't feel like we're making change. So what advice would you give us that would maybe not necessarily make us feel like we're making change, but change is happening regardless, since we're not sitting in positions like the both of you are?
Hi, everyone. This is Jenny Moniz from We Didn't Turn Out Okay podcast. Did you know at Great Wolf Lodge, there's adventure for the whole family? You and your pack can splash away in the indoor water park where it's always 84 degrees. There's a massive wave pool, a lazy river, and tons of water slides for your pack to enjoy together. And the fun doesn't stop there. Get ready to explore and play at adventure-packed attractions from Magi Quest, a live-action game that takes place throughout the lodge, to the Northern Lights Arcade. There's also a bunch of great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. And the best part, with 23 lodges across the country, you're always only a short drive away from adventure. As a parent who loves family adventures, I love when everything's in one place. It's why I can't wait to take my family to Great Wolf Lodge. So bring your pack together at a lodge near you, book your stay today at greatwolf.com, and strengthen the pack.
You know, sometimes I think we have this idea that change has to look really grandiose. Like it has to be some reel on your Instagram, and it needs to be something that, is splashy. And many times, at least in my life, I feel that the times where I have been impacted the most and the times where my life has completely shifted direction is by the simple expression from someone else where they fed me an edifying line. They just uplifted me. They saw me in my raw honesty, and whatever that was, it took root inside of my mind. So I think sometimes, especially in the world of social media and wanting to maybe connect a little more to our ego than our internal side, I think that it can be as simple as just making sure that we are edifying each other when we need edification, because those have been the times that have impacted the most and showed up to me in ways that I can't imagine being here if it wasn't for my teachers, if it wasn't for my friends. Yeah.
I think that's a really great point, and I want to lean in on this, that it doesn't have to be something that you post on social media. I think we learned a really big lesson from our Super Bowl prophet Kendrick Lamar. Turn the TV off. Turn the TV off. I really feel like that was a call to action. Turn the TV off. Put the phone down. Sit in nature. Be in community. I have this saying, like, what does your daily practice of life look like, right? So, like, there's a statistic that out there that says every day we think the same thing. I think 90% of what you think one day is repeated the next day. I don't know the exact statistic. It's very high. It's very alarming. It kind of reminds us that we can operate a little bit on a robotic mode, right? So I would say, if you really want to create change, focus on yourself and lean into, what does your daily practice of life look like? How are you waking up? What do you say to yourself when you wake up? When you're walking into a room, do you say anything to yourself before you walk into that room? While you're in that room, are you checking in on yourself, saying, how am I feeling in this moment? When you leave, like, just really lean on who is taking care of you, right? You are your biggest advocate, right? You're the one who's with you 24/7. So what is your communication like with yourself? And how do you lean into that in a way that allows you to become a change maker, right? It starts with how you treat yourself, because when you're good to yourself, then you treat others well. And I really want to lean into this because as a judge, I mean, who has this image of a judge who's like a grumpy old man? Like, that's like the image. Raise your hand if like that's your image of a judge. Yeah, it's like a lot. I mean, I even thought it too, right? And I've been in courtrooms where the judge is grumpy and mad and then takes it out on the people who's standing in front of them, right? And to me, that's an indication of a lack of awareness of, we create space with our energy, even this space right here. Now imagine someone standing in front of you, you're a judge. That's the hardest moment in their life oftentimes, especially in criminal cases, which is what I handle. I want to be very intentional about how I treat someone in my court. I don't want them to feel like this is the worst moment in their life. I want them to understand, you get justice in a courtroom. It is innocent unless proven guilty, not until, unless. You are presumed innocent in a courtroom, and you should be treated as such. And so we do that with how we show up in our language. We treat each other well when we take care of ourselves and have enough presence to say, hey, how are you really doing? Are you okay? You're having a hard day? Ay, comadre, let's go get café. Let's talk. When we lean into those small moments of change, it trickles out into the world in a really beautiful, beautiful way that I think is really like, we can all do a little bit at a time. We all are carrying so much in the world, but that's one thing you can do every day that I guarantee you will make our world a better place.
So because you all wear many hats, What is your armor to start your day look like? This doesn't mean clothing. I mean, I don't always wear pink, guys. Like, people seem to think that that's what, no, I wear the blacks and the browns and stuff like that. But what does your armor look like when you wake up?
Listen, sometimes I forget that armor even exists. Truly, truly. I'm in a completely new space where I get to walk into this incredibly historic feeling that the door hinges have Texas state seals on them. Legit. You can go over there and look at the door hinges. And I get to, in my kitten heels, because we don't get too crazy, stomp down the halls. Stomp down the halls and, pass images from the 1800s of people that look nothing like me. And there's imposter syndrome that takes over my entire mind. And I forget that there's armor and that I can, have a positive dialogue in my mind. And so, with that, I just want to be really realistic and remind us that it's not always possible for us to engage in positivity, even I consider myself a relatively positive person, but I'm in a new space. And I honestly have to say that, for example, this last week was extremely challenging for me. And I walk into my office and it's, I want to start crying. And my chief of staff is like, no. Like, you did good. You don't let that bother you. Listen to me. Right now, you are meant to be here. You are representing your constituents, and we need your voice. And if you felt like, if you felt like you got emotional, we're women. We get emotional. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what we need to see. It's the people that don't get emotional that we, and she just goes on. And, she's right here. Tammy, please stand. Raise your hand, Tammy. Stand up. And so sometimes you show up to the space without any armor. And then you have people that are like, put this on. This is your armor. Remember who you are and why you're doing this and that you belong.
I really want to highlight this because I think it's something people don't talk about in politics enough. There is some ugliness in politics. I grew up in the hood, and so when you had a problem with someone, you were direct, right? You were like straight
Catch
up.
me outside.
Yeah, you got a problem? Let's talk about it, right? And also, I think as like in community as Latinas, when there was a problem, oftentimes you would see like your tias and your mom and people talking about it, right? Like processing at a table with coffee and pan dulce, right? It's like this, and actually like when you go to therapy, what do you have to do? You have to talk about it, right? Like it's, so when you recognize, then you go into a political space where it's indirect, it's passive aggressive. You never know who really is your homie or not, right? And then it's like, wow, this is a really unhealthy way to exist. And then this is literally our political system. What the F? It actually makes a lot of sense when you see the chaos, because the way community is held in political space is concerning. Shout out, yes, the people without emotions should be concerned about, because we're humans, we're not robots, right? The emotions are important. They give us direction. They allow us to know this is safe, this is unsafe, this is not hitting right, this feels unjust. All those things are important. And so when I ran for office, I had the same experience where I was like, what the F? This is wild. And it was a horrible experience. It was not a good experience. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. This is too much. This is so unhealthy, right? And we're in a time where I feel like a lot of people are really getting into their inner child. You're like, why am I forcing myself in space that consistently feels dysregulating, right? And then you recognize, okay, I have to toughen myself up in some way, but not in a way that goes against my value system. So my morning practice is I wake up, I do gua sha. Does anyone else do that? Highly recommend. So good. It's so good for the face. Wake yourself up. But then I meditate. I do some qigong. I lean into sun salutations. I thank my ancestors. I thank my family. I send out blessings. I sit in nature, and I'm reminded this is what it's about. These moments is the moment of connection with nature, with my ancestors, and thinking how much they have gone through for me to even be in this moment. That's right. Period. And I think, man, when I think about my ancestors and what they went through and then what I went through, like growing up, this is nothing. I can handle this. This is nothing. And I grew up in Houston. I can handle this. I can handle this. And so your armor doesn't have to look like being mean, right? Or being rude. You can still ground yourself in joy and kindness and say, that energy is not going to impact me. You know, I'm grounded in who I am and in my joy and my love. I don't need your external validation because I got me, right? And I think that's how we have to lean. Like the armor does not have to be mean. We have to move away from that. That also, Adrienne Marie Brown talks about this. Sometimes we want to lean into meanness with people who aren't like us and who don't have value systems like us and who are mean to us. Remember, mean people oftentimes feel that way because that is a lot of self mess in themselves. That's not even about you, right? Half of the time we're all thinking just about ourselves in our head, trying to figure out our own stuff. So lean into recognizing that a lot of things is just a projection. You don't have to hold on to that. That's not yours. You take care of you. Let that be your armor.
I have this saying, because I'm in a house full of boys, by the way, which is why I serve women. They've heard the story. I'm not saying anything new. And I oftentimes when they have, and they're teenagers, by the way, 16 and 14. And I'm like, excuse me, sir, we breathe the same air. So I'm going to go over there because I don't want to breathe in whatever you got going on here. So, and the same, sometimes mentally, I don't say it out loud, but with other people, I'm like, oh, you're having a bad day. Guess what? I am too, but I'm going to remove myself from here. You both have been servants. Almost, I would feel like without knowing you were. So you've created this path. You are now building a brand new path as well. How can we support you all to continue pouring into you like you've poured into us? I went completely off script, by the way. That's not even on the questions I had sent them. How can we support you all?
So, you know, I've been thinking about this a lot, actually, because it feels like, especially in politics, we can spring into action every 4 years or every 2 years, depending when we have to get to, you know, the ballots. And a lot of my cousins are, you know, were very concerned with these last elections, extremely concerned. And I had been asking them, hey, I'm having a block walk if you want to come and volunteer, you know, and radio silence. And I get it. It's Saturday. No one wants, and they live on the other side of town. You know, no one wants to drive far away on a Saturday morning. And they're probably like, you know, prima got it. Like, she don't need us, you know. And then when shit is going down, you know, they're like, you know, firing off in the family chat. And I'm just like, listen, the way I see this now that I'm on this other side is voting is only 25% of the work. It's minimal. That's the bare minimum you can do is get yourself up off the couch and into a ballot booth. It is about connecting with your local policy makers, folks that are working in public service, those that you align with. It's volunteering, it's block walking, it's making phone calls, it's bringing food to the volunteers. That is what that piece of the puzzle looks like. That is, so when you all want to support, and let's say you're very busy and you can't, we got a Act Blue is a link where you can donate to your local politician, your Democrat politician. Act Blue me then. I'll take some Act Blue. And so I feel like that is the best way, at least from this space and where I'm at, to help support now. Right now, we're not going through an election, right? That's kind of off the table. And so right now, it's really important for you to activate and start making phone calls. When I would hear, folks say, call your local representatives, I mean, my eyes would probably roll so far. Like, how is that really going to make a difference is what I would think. But now that I'm on this side, let me tell you, I have a team over there. Let them tell you how much the phone is ringing and what that means to the office. It does make impact. It is very helpful to hear from your constituents, especially if there's things that you don't agree with, for us to start making those phone calls and let them know how you feel, because they are getting the voicemails, they're getting the messages. And so I think it's important for us to engage in that way. So I think that's the type of support.
Act Blue. Let me just repoint that for over here. That's important. It's important. I am about to run my second term so I've been on the bench now for 3 years, and I'm about to run for my next term. I will officially announce in the summer of this year, which is exciting. So if you're interested in supporting, just go follow me on Instagram. Denise Creates Change. That's it. Denise Creates Change. I have a newsletter that I'm working on right now. I'm really focused on kind of pouring a lot of what I'm sharing here, like, into a newsletter. Like, how can we connect and make a difference in ways that are easy and a way to create impact in our community? Because I think we're all activated and ready and realize that it takes all of us. So, follow me on Instagram, sign up for the newsletter, stay updated. I typically like to share a lot of things that are going to uplift your soul. So I think it'll be mutual. Please feel free to share, the cool memes you find. I'll share the cool memes I find. And I think that's a good way to start supporting.
Well, you all have, again, I do this all the time. I always sit here and then I forget that I'm up here and I'm like, yes, tell me more. And I'm like, wait, that's the next question, because we're also on a little time challenge here. But ladies, I cannot say thank you enough. And I like I said, I'm gonna try not to. I'm holding it off on the chillona pero chingona face is what I say, because I think we all deserve that, right? Thank you all so much for spending your Saturday. You could have been anywhere, probably at home because you're avoiding South by traffic, but you're here with us. And to me and to all of us, I'm pretty sure we can all say that we're so grateful for the work that you all do day in and day out, but not just in your perspective roles, but just being humans and taking up space and allowing us to take space and reminding us what that is. It goes a long way. So we all have to remember that we are somebody's ancestor at the end of the day too. So what we're doing today makes an impact in the future, whether we see it or not. So thank you all so much for being here.
A big thank you to Bessie Martinez, Denise Hernandez, and the House of Chingonas for an awesome event and discussion. And a huge thank you to everyone who showed up. I loved getting the chance to share my story and my work with you all. And thank you, Investies, for tuning in this week. You're listening to an In Luz We Trust and Cosmic Standard production. A special thank you to the team, Asia Simpson, Eliza Smith, and Jacob Winnick.